What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the Rotoworld Basketball Show presented by NBC. I'm Dan Titus, joined with Noah Rubin and Raphielle Johnson. We are into week 10 of fantasy basketball. We've had melees, we've had trades, we've had suspensions. It's all going down in week 10, and we're going to talk about it. So first and foremost, guys, just want to say happy holidays. It's been a minute since I was able to connect with y'all. Caught the last show. It was obviously dope. And yeah, man, I don't know. I feel like I'm pressed because Raph does such a good job of orchestrating this whole thing, man. I don't think y'all need me here. But I got some takes because it's been like a week or two. But
we definitely need you here. So.
No, I want to get your thoughts, man. Luka Doncic is going to be out for at least a month with a calf strain. This is the same calf that's been bothering him for all season long. I don't know, man. Are you concerned about this long term? And what do you think from a fantasy perspective, Spencer Dinwiddie can do in the interim?
As far as being concerned about Luka long term, I don't think I'm too terribly concerned. Obviously, it stinks that he's going to be out for a little while. I don't think that they're going to be rushing him back by any means because they know that if they're in the playoffs and they have a healthy Luka Doncic, that they'll have a chance to make it really far. Like they did last season, they made it to the championship. So they're not going to rush that back. It stinks for fantasy. Obviously, long term, like I'm not going to be too worried about like a recurring calf issue heading into next season, anything like that. But it isn't the best, I guess, scenario as far as streaming goes. I think Spencer Dinwiddie got to start. The other suspensions impacted that as well, kind of opening up, which we'll talk about here in a second. Maxi Kleber was able to start. Quentin Grimes saw a lot of minutes off the bench, and like, sure, maybe in like a 14-team league, 16-team league, those guys can have some value, but I don't think that any of them are like, okay, like must roster, like do not let them be on your waiver wire just because Luka's out. Now, Kyrie Irving is out tonight, so maybe you increase the priority a little bit there just because there's no Kyrie, no Luka, no PJ Washington, no Najee Marshall. So a lot of minutes and a lot of shots to go around. So short term, there's some streaming value there, but after like if Kyrie's healthy, he's the priority on offense, not these other guys.
Yeah, I think that's fair. But with his shoulder injury, you also have to ask how much workload can he take on with Luka out? Like obviously an immensely gifted scorer, but the long game is the play here for Dallas. So you want to make sure that Kyrie doesn't wind up in a situation where he has to miss an extended period due to injury. And it's probably going to happen at some point just because that's kind of the track record with him. That's the reason why his draft value was as low as it was in fantasy, where you kind of expect that extended absence to come at some point. So I think right now it's Dinwiddie and Grimes. Once Najee Marshall gets back for week 11, then he'll probably be in play as well in terms of a deep league ad for fantasy while Luka's out.
Yeah, I had Dinwiddie as the guy, and then Quentin Grimes is the second fiddle there. Obviously, the Najee Marshall suspension, he's going to be missing, suspended for 4 games, 3 games left of that, and then you got PJ Washington, only 1 game. So definitely going to be a committee approach here. It doesn't help that Kyrie Irving is going to be out on Monday, but I think that if you did pick up Spencer Dinwiddie, it's probably a good look. He has improved his efficiency when he's seen starters minutes, 17 points. 4 rebounds, 4 or 5 rebounds, and 6 assists. So definitely serviceable numbers, at least in the short term here. And then we'll see how Quentin Grimes kind of shakes out. Definitely helps that Najee Marshall's out of the lineup there. But yeah, just a lot of injuries and just circumstances falling in place for the Dallas Mavericks. Derek Lively's also been out, which has definitely been a boost for Daniel Gafford. But yeah, we'll see. But let's look at the other side. So we kind of alluded to it. I started talking about Luka Doncic, but there was a whole fight that happened where Najee Marshall got suspended for smacking Yusuf Nurkic, and PJ Washington. That wasn't even the scrap we need to be talking about. We'll get to the other scrap.
Yeah, he didn't land the hit.
Yeah, he did. The issue for Najee was that he tried to go after Nurkic in the back after they'd been ejected. That's why he got the extra game. So.
Oh, I didn't even read that.
Yes.
It was still weak compared to what we're going to talk about later. But
yeah, for sure. I think I messaged Raphielle because we were blurring the games when that happened. I was like, he was a half inch from because the way that the punch was about to land, it's a half inch from like being suspended the rest of the season or something. If you really landed that one, it could have been a much longer suspension.
What was the Melo? Who did Melo hit?
Marty Collins.
Marty Collins. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a sucker punch. If we're gonna be completely honest, like at least
Um,
Nurk would have seen what was coming this time, but Marty did not.
So was Draymond onto something here? Is there something with Nurk that everyone just has beef with Nurk here? Because like I don't know. First time it was like, all right, maybe Draymond's tripping. Second time, I don't know. If there's a third, this might be on Nurk, man.
It could be on both of them. Like it just could be both. Draymond and Nurk are just like that. It's not like I don't think it's Draymond's in the right here because there's so many instances of Draymond clearly not just being like this innocent bystander when things go wrong.
Yeah, we'll see. But Nurkic is out. So, I mean, at least what is it? I mean, for the Suns, I mean, they're at least potentially getting Devin Booker back tonight. He's questionable, been upgraded on the injury report. Royce O'Neal has also been upgraded to questionable. For me, this is a team I'm avoiding in week 10. There's only 2 games for the Suns. If you do look ahead to week 11, though, they play 5 games. They're the only team that plays 5 games. So, I mean, are you guys even picking up anyone from the Suns this week, or is this pretty much a pass for you, Raph?
Besides Mason Plumlee, I would consider him, even with the 2 games, just because we know that Nurkic is going to be out. But even he's not like someone that I'd be rushing out to add from a waiver wire at this point. So, no.
And we're not.
I think
go
I was going to say if Nurk, no, you're good at if Nurk was going to be suspended for more of that 5-game week, then maybe I would look at Plumlee either this week or just picking him up on a Sunday night using your last move of this week, heading like before next week to get him on there. But Nurk will be back before that's worth it.
Yeah. So the other melee that happened last night, the Houston Rockets, Amen Thompson and Tyler Herro got into it. Amen pretty much just tossed Tyler Herro like a rag doll. Probably going to be facing a suspension, I would imagine. Yeah. But I don't know. I kind of respected Tyler Herro for talking smack after the game. You know, he had the shades on, real confident, pretty much saying that he was cooking Thompson all game, which, I mean, yeah, he put up some numbers, but I don't know, man. Can you still talk that kind of smack after you just get mishandled, body slammed that way? Like, bold strategy, Cotton.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I don't know, man. Thompson's probably going to get suspended for the throw. I think the bigger thing for Houston is there are 2 bigger things actually. One, Fred VanVleet. He was ejected before that for bumping Mark Davis. They didn't look too malicious on a video, but I'm not the referee writing the report here, so that's going to be a concern. And then the other one is Tari Eason. 6 straight games out, lower left leg injury, same issue that he had most of last year. They had to remove a benign growth from his leg via surgery in the spring. Now you're having that recurring issue. As good as he's been in fantasy, I think that's a really concerning situation for fantasy managers and just people in general, because you want to see these guys healthy. So, you know, you certainly hope that he's back soon enough. But I think Amen Thompson, maybe he gets like a game or 2. I'm more concerned about VanVleet and Tari Eason than Amen Thompson in terms of games missed at this point.
And Cam Whitmore also just joined the rotation as a result of Tari Eason being out. So, Noah, like, do you think that there's actually some streaming appeal going forward for Dylan Brooks or Cam Whitmore while Tari Eason kind of waits to get back into the lineup?
I think there definitely is, especially if Amen Thompson is suspended as we expect him to be. If he's, I don't know if we can kind of compare it to what happened with that Suns Mavs fight and like the suspensions that came because of that. I would imagine that what Amen Thompson did, I don't know exactly how you compare it. Is it a 5-game suspension? Is it longer? So we'll just wait and see what the league says. But I think Dylan Brooks already as a starter is kind of a option. So like, he's not going to see a ton more shots or a ton more minutes, but we know Cam Whitmore can get you some buckets. He's going to shoot it regardless of whether or not his shot's going in. So iffy in a category league, but more so in a points league, I think that Cam Whitmore will definitely have some streaming value.
Yeah, I'm a little bit worried about Fred VanVleet. This dude's been getting teched teched up a lot, and then he's had a lot of choice words for the refereeing all season. So I don't know. I didn't have that in my handicapping of Fred VanVleet this season, that he was going to be having to deal with so many issues with the referees. And I don't know, he's been playing a little bit better. The field goal percentage is always going to be something to be desired, but at least we're seeing more of an uptick in the assists, and he's getting back to normally what he does. But the suspension probably coming for making contact with the referee. Can't do that. And sidebar, I don't know if you guys saw, but I saw Jason Concepcion had a podcast on making fun of the league because apparently the refs have a YouTube channel, and like they go through all of their
calls.
Why? Who's that content for? Like, who wants to see anyone talk about that? I just think it's funny that someone even found that. They got like 400 subscribers on their YouTube channel. So I don't know. Maybe it's another way for them to create some content. I didn't know we needed ref content, but here we are in 2024 on the way to 25.
You don't like the Scott Foster, Jack Harlow music video? You don't like that one? You said you don't want to see ref content.
Scott Foster, man, the coolest ref out there. Oh my God, it's terrible, absolutely terrible. But a big trade went down also on Sunday. D'Angelo Russell got moved back to the Brooklyn Nets in exchange for Maxwell Lewis, as well as 3 second-round picks in exchange for Dorian Finney-Smith. Noah, is this a better real-life move or fantasy move? And obviously, D'Lo going to Brooklyn is a good thing for him, but what does this really mean on the Lakers side of things? How do you see this rotation kind of shaking out, and what can a fantasy manager glean from this trade?
Yeah, I think it's going to be kind of interesting to see how JJ Redick uses these new pieces because obviously D'Angelo Russell wasn't starting. So either Dorian Finney-Smith is going to come off the bench long-term as he kind of gets used to playing with this team, or he's going to replace somebody in the starting lineup. And I would guess that Rui Hachimura would end up being the odd man out in that scenario. I don't think they'd want to go with too big of a starting lineup, kind of bump Max Christie out there because that's just a bunch of forwards and Austin Reeves. So I don't know about that fit. So it could be Rui Hachimura that's moved to the bench. I am also interested to see Shake Milton was also sent to the Lakers in that deal. Does he kind of replace Gabe Vincent as the backup point guard? Could he see 20 minutes per game? I mean, replace Gabe Vincent and obviously D'Angelo Russell, who's getting a lot of minutes off the bench, where Shake Milton is the guy that could get a spot start like Gabe Vincent did in their last game. I'm not sure I'm rushing to the waiver wire to add him, even though he was probably being streamed in because he was seeing a lot of minutes in Brooklyn. But yeah, I think it is a good move for the Lakers. I think Dorian Finney-Smith does a lot of things that help teams win, and him being in Brooklyn for so long, I know he's been on the trade block for like 5 years or something like that. So it'll be interesting to see how he impacts with this new team and how they can use him.
My man was on that John Collins plan. They finally moved him. So, but yeah, I think for the Lakers, this is like more of a better real life move than fantasy. Like Finney-Smith, you get some threes and some steals in his role. Probably gonna be a late round guy at best. Shake Milton, I'm not expecting too much from him. I think my question with Brooklyn is, are they going to play D'Angelo Russell like heavy minutes? They do have a need for a point guard. Dennis Schroeder being traded, Ben Simmons' availability issues are still present. So if he can get in that role where they decide we're going to let you start at the point for the foreseeable future, then, there'll be good value for him. The other guy for me is the other two guys I would say are Noah Clowney and Jalen Wilson. I think Jalen Wilson's a little more dependent on Cameron Johnson, but both of those guys I think are going to play good minutes. Clowney started on Sunday against Orlando. He was starting when Finney-Smith was out recently too. Not expecting too much from him right away, but I think he's someone that once we hit like silly season fantasy playoff time, he's going to have really good value just because of his role.
Yeah, I think as I wrote up the waiver wire article this week, I had a mention of Noah Clowney just because like I'm curious to see how those minutes are distributed between him and Jalen Wilson, a guy that's actually been seeing minutes and playing pretty well when given an opportunity. So I don't know if I'm rushing to go add Noah Rubin. Noah Clowney.
You should. He's available in way too many leagues. Let me tell you.
But yeah, like I think I agree with both of you in terms of the Lakers definitely improved here as like a team in real life. The one area where I'm like kind of questioning though is I think it was reported earlier. I think Shams came out to say that DFS will be coming off the bench initially.
Mhm.
I don't know that that's going to be a mainstay. Like I agree with Noah in the fact that Rui Hachimura is probably going to be the one that's going to have to be sacrificed here. Like in fantasy, he's been a 12-team rosterable guy, but if DFS is a better fit, JJ Redick likes him a lot. He's been very vocal about what he does on both sides of the ball. Better three-point shooter, better defensively. It doesn't really make sense to keep Rui in the role that he's currently in. But then also, like, what does this do for Dalton Connect? Because now D'Lo's not coming off the bench anymore. Who's going to be their primary option off the bench? So I think there might actually be some room. I mean, I'm not saying to add Dalton Connect right now, but they do have a good week this week in the back half of the week. So if you want to look for a streamer, do it. But keep an eye on Dalton Connect, because I think he actually could have a pretty good bench presence. I did see a report, though, on The Athletic that there's no guarantee that D'Lo even stays with the Brooklyn Nets, because one thing the Brooklyn Nets have been doing wrong is winning games. And I'm pretty sure this kind of raises the floor a little bit by having D'Lo on the roster. Like, as D'Lo has his flaws, but he can win some games. He's been clutch before. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to kind of see how the Brooklyn Nets kind of navigate this trade season here, because Cam Johnson is a guy that's reportedly demanding multiple first-round picks, which I don't know. I guess maybe that's possible, but like I don't know. I would pay that price for Cam Johnson, but I don't know. It was interesting that the Grizzlies offered a first-round pick and Luke Kennard and John Concher for DFS, and the Nets declined. So they're definitely banking on the Lakers being trash.
I think that first was a protected pick too. So that may have had something to do with Brooklyn's decision to say, we'll take the 3 seconds,
right,
as opposed to that.
What's even more crazy is just looking at trying to figure out like, oh, okay, how many picks does the Nets have now? They have 31 picks until 2031.
Yeah.
Still amazingly, the Thunder have 32.
I was going to say they probably have more.
Bro, that's the best team in basketball still has 32 picks. Like, what?
I think one last thing I wanted to throw in, you bring up the D'Angelo Russell question. What's stopping the Nets from saying to Cam Thomas, once he's no longer restricted, how about you run the show and we'll see what you can potentially do ahead of free agency? I think that, that's something else to consider. Doesn't really pass too much. I think he's been a little better at that this season, but you don't want to, I don't say you don't want to win games, but it's like it would be in your best interest to improve your draft lottery odds, and giving him the keys may be the way to do that while not looking like you're actively trying to tank.
Don't have a true point guard there, man. Makes it way easier to lose basketball games. But also, that sounds like a buy Cam Thomas. That's what it sounds like to me. And he's still on that minutes restriction, but he still dropped 25 points in 18 minutes yesterday. Just crazy. Hey, Noah, apparently the Kings need a new head coach because Mike Brown got fired last week. I just don't get it at this point. This guy won Coach of the Year 2 years ago. This is a bigger issue than just the coaching, right? Like, I was actually at the game where the Pistons had that ridiculous comeback. And I think that was just the storyline all year, is that they go out, they acquire one of the clutchest players in the league in DeMar DeRozan. They have a clutch player of the year in De'Aaron Fox, and yet they're the least clutch team in the NBA. Like 9 games they've lost in clutch moments. Where do we go from here from a fantasy perspective? Because the first game under Doug Christie pretty much saw the same version of the Kings that we've been seeing all year. They have 3 guys in the top 55, and Keegan Murray continues to just struggle. He shot 2 for 7, 1 for 6 from 3, 5 points, gave you nothing else. Malik Monk had a good game as well, but I mean, I just don't know that this is going to improve the fantasy stock for any of these players not having Mike Brown there. At what point is De'Aaron Fox just going to be like, all right, dude, I already told you I'm not going to re-sign here, so just trade me, get some assets, and let's just blow this thing up, because it's trending the wrong direction.
Yeah, there's a lot to kind of dissect with this Kings team on the moves that they made since they made the playoffs 2 years ago, kind of ended their playoff drought, and then what they've done since then. there's so many things where you can point back to and just say, that probably wasn't the best thing for them to have done here. I mean, after I think they were the 3 seed that year and then lost to the Warriors first round. They didn't really do too much to improve the year after. That was the same mistake that the Hawks made after they made their Eastern Conference Finals run. They're like, oh, we're here. Let's not do anything to improve the team. And you see how that's gone. The Hawks are almost an entirely different team since then. So, and then the Kings added DeMar this offseason, which I think a lot of people questioned immediately. Like, yeah, sure, he is a better basketball player than Harrison Barnes, but how does this all fit together? Does this really help the team just by adding more talent? And early on, I think there was some like, oh, like, hey, you guys said that this wasn't going to work. And look, DeMar DeRozan's hitting mid-range shots and we won a couple games. And it's like, yeah, that's what he does. He is a good scorer. He's a pro. He's one of the best. And now it's like we've kind of seen, okay, things aren't going as well as maybe the team was hoping they would. I think that adding in somebody like DeMar, you're kind of changing up a lot of what the team does. So it takes time to figure it out. So it was, I don't want to call it rush, but maybe a little early to me to fire Mike Brown, a guy who has done a phenomenal job since getting there. I think this was year 3 and he had 2 winning seasons and brought them back to the postseason, which was something they hadn't done. So I don't know. As far as fantasy, it's not going to change all that much. I mean, maybe they turn to Keon Ellis a little bit more. Maybe that's just me being a little hopeful, but I don't know. I think talking about the basketball, like the real life basketball side of it, is a lot more interesting than the fantasy side because they're probably not going to change all that much.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Like, if anything, they should have acquired someone like a Dorian Finney-Smith during the offseason because you add DeMar. Keegan Murray, Lord willing, has a lot of basketball left to play, but they pretty much actively torpedoed his growth by making that move. Obviously, growth isn't linear, but we've seen him struggle. They pretty much turned him into a catch-and-shoot guy, and he's way too skilled to be that type of player. And I don't think firing Mike Brown, of which they still haven't had a press conference, mind you, is going to change that.
Let alone a conversation.
So, yeah, and now you've got De'Aaron Fox having to go out and say, look, I didn't have anything to do with him being fired. You would think if you're trying to appease your star player to make sure he stays, somebody, whether it's Monty McNair or Vivek Ranadive, would get in front of a microphone and say, this is our decision. We did it. De'Aaron had nothing to do with it. Because you leave him out here hanging like this, you probably are going to get to a point where he and Rich Paul say, the hell with this. You guys need to get whatever assets you can because I'm not signing a new deal.
Yep. No notes. So if you got these guys roster, man, I think you got the main guys, and then I don't know, man. I think the Keegan Murray question is like, how long do you hold for at this point? Something's going to have to change for him to become fantasy relevant because his growth has just been stifled with DeMar DeRozan there. It's just not the same guy. Similarly, maybe get some trade news. We don't know, but Pat Riley has no intentions of trading Jimmy Butler. From a fantasy perspective, though, Raph, do you think that there's a place where fantasy managers should be looking to move him, or are they kind of just stuck?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I'm not really sure what type of value you can ask for him. Like, we've seen him produce like high-level value in Miami, but I don't think you're going to be able to get like a top 50 player for him at this point, just because of the production thus far and the question marks regarding like how active is he going to be once he's back in the lineup, which could be as soon as Wednesday. Is he going to be engaged? I think that may be a bigger aspect of their win in Houston last night, is that they were able to do this without him. And guys kind of fighting for each other, like literally and figuratively, I guess. But, I think that maybe being able to take a step forward in that regard should help the rest of the team. But in terms of him, I'm not really sure what you can get value-wise for him in a trade right now.
I'd almost be looking at the flip side of it just because of the point that Raph said. Like, is this just a buy very low situation? Because if he is traded, Pat Riley could just be saying that to just keep the price high. Like, if you're going to trade for him, you're going to have to trade for Jimmy Butler, not pennies on the dollar, just to get this superstar that's asking out. And he is traded. Is he, like Raph said, is he more engaged with a new team that he feels like happier with, or has a better chance of winning a championship? Or anything like that. And in which case, maybe the numbers are reduced slightly from playing with, more talented players or like more superstars that take more shots, but he's going to be a really, really good fantasy option. And if he stays, say he's like, all right, cool, didn't trade me. I'm still a competitive player. I want to try and win a championship. Plays a lot down the stretch. How low can you buy? I'm not saying I would give up a top 50 player. Just like Raph said, you probably can't get one. Not sure I'd want to give up one, but if you can get up like a top 100, maybe a top 75 guy that's like obviously significantly worse in fantasy, that maybe you can sell somebody on, hey, Jimmy Butler probably isn't going to play a lot the rest of the season. He's, how Jimmy Butler is injury prone, doesn't want to play if he's not happy, like kind of salesman it a little bit. Then maybe you can get Jimmy Butler at a low price. That's probably the strategy I'd be looking for, because I don't think you can get much back if you're trying to sell.
Yeah, I'm looking through Yahoo's recent trade machine, which obviously has some BS trades in it. I don't think anyone realistically is trading Jimmy Butler for Luka Dort, but someone did it. That sounds like some collusion.
Ralph, what do you think? Was that you?
Yeah, I did it.
But there are some interesting names on here. DeJounte Murray, straight up. Desmond Bane happened a couple of times. I think that kind of seems like comparable value. Vucevic, I think I'd probably still take Vooch there. Walker Kessler. That's probably the furthest I'll go. And I think that's obviously, if you're trading for Walker Kessler, those are different needs. I don't know if I'm not going to say that that's a landslide trade by any means. They do different things, but I guess you can see the spectrum of, a Bane, DeJounte to like a Walker Kessler big man. I don't know. Yeah, I think it's going to be hard to move Jimmy. I think the name and everything that comes with him just being inconsistently in the lineup is just going to be hard for trade value. What about your Hawks, though, Noah? What's going on, man? Dyson Daniels has missed several games now. He's now injured. He's now eligible for the injured list on Yahoo. Larry Nance is going to be out indefinitely with a hand injury. And then Bogdanovic, he just hasn't been able to come together at all this year. So is there anyone that you're picking up from the fallout of all these injuries in Atlanta?
No. I'm not looking at Veep Krejci to stream him in or anything like that. Even though I think he's a good player, I don't think that he's a fantasy option. But I think Dyson Daniels has just been sick. He missed their last 2 games with an L, so I'm not expecting him to be out for a while. Obviously, Larry Nance is supposed to have surgery on Thursday, and they'll have more of a timeline after that. But Okongwu's back, so I don't even know if he would have been still part of the rotation, even if he's playing really well. And then Bogey has been really frustrating. I don't remember how many games in a row it's been that he's missed, maybe like 3 to 5 or something. But he, I don't know what kind of timeline there is on that. There hasn't been anyone listed, so I'm just taking it game by game, even though he has been just kind of a frustrating fantasy option. Pretty much the rosterable players, even with these guys out, are already rostered. DeAndre Hunter's been awesome off the bench. He's not moving into the starting lineup, so not too interested. And Raph just typed in there 4 straight games for Bogey, absent.
No love for Gary Bird.
If I need threes on a Sunday and that's going to decide a matchup for me, then I know who to call.
Yeah,
but other than that, nah.
All right.
Matthews has been hitting them. He's been hitting them.
He's been up and down. I think
that's his job.
He had
literally the only thing he does. Just go hit some threes.
2 games sandwich in between 2 really good games was this game where it's like glorified cardio. So it's like I don't think he's someone that you can fully count on. It was close.
I thought it was a Tony.
It was not a Tony, but it was close. Yeah.
Here you are, you're Snell. What about Richiche? Is he not interesting enough to maybe stream if the Hawks? Week 11 isn't a great week for the Hawks, but just saying going forward, if Bogey continues to miss time and these injuries pop up, like, is he someone that at least warrants some attention in 12 teams?
I think if it's like a lighter day, like that kind of scenario where the starts kind of align, then I'd be fine streaming him in. And he has been playing better recently from a fantasy perspective. He's like his efficiency is improving a little bit. He played really well in their last game, got some defensive numbers, shot the ball well. I don't feel confident in him yet to be able to really rely on him. And so if it's like there's 3 games today, the Hawks are one of them. Let me just get a body out there just to, increase my games played. There's no sort of games kept, anything like that. Then sure. But I don't know that his minutes to me are more reliant on DeAndre Hunter because they've kind of he's been the starter, but it's been like 20 to 23 minutes to make sure that DeAndre Hunter can get his 25 to 30 because he has been hooping this year. Like he has been, he's best basketball of his career. He's thriving in his new role. So it's kind of a balance for Quinn Snyder to figure out how that works. The minutes haven't been there consistently enough for Risa Shea, and then the shot hasn't been there consistently enough for me to say, with Bogey out, with Dyson out, you have to stream this guy in.
Yeah. I think DeAndre Hunter's at 49% rostered. So
crazy.
Yeah, he's the
one. All right, so stream him. There you go. My bad.
Yeah, so grab him. Their schedule isn't great the next few weeks. It's 3-3-3 the next 3 weeks here. And I think all their games are on like busier game days where the NBA schedule is a bit more spread out now. So you're not going to get as much value from like a Risa Shea or I said Garrison Matthews in jest, but one of those guys really isn't going to give you too much value. But if DeAndre Hunter's on your waiver wire, he's someone to add now. He's probably going to have value for the rest of the season.
Yeah, it's crazy. He was on that John Collins timeline too of just, the Hawks are trying to get off of that contract for the longest, and now he's looking like a 6th man of the year candidate. So I don't know. Good things come to those who wait. Unfortunately, Jalen Suggs got hurt again. This time it's a wrist injury. We don't know how long he's going to be out. I don't know how the Magic keep doing this, man. Tristan da Silva played the hero along with Cole Anthony. Raph, are you picking up anyone from the Orlando Magic if Suggs misses multiple games?
Maybe da Silva. You're not going to get too much value there, but I feel like a lot of fantasy managers are just scarred by Cole Anthony at this point. And even though he made the game-winning shot on Sunday, efficiency is still a serious issue for him. That's pretty much why he fell out of the rotation entirely. So I think Tristan da Silva for the short term. Look at their schedule. They've got 3 games, this week, Denver, Toronto, and Utah. So I think those are decent matchups in terms of the potential to go off, at least the last 2. But I don't really see too much value on that roster. I just feel like there's too many guys that are hurt at this point. We're just kind of waiting for Paolo Banchero to return.
What about KCP, Noah?
Shit.
I was gonna be more polite.
He's averaging 2.5 steals per game over the last 4 games.
A steal specialist, sure.
You're making this man out to be Matisse Thybulle, man. He's doing
nobody said that.
Goodness. Wow. I was gonna kind of allude to Cole Anthony a little bit, not feel great about it, just like
yuck.
Somebody's gonna have to shoot the basketball.
Give me KCP.
He will. Goodness gracious, Dan. No, you can have KCP. You can have KCP.
So you guys would both take Cole Anthony over KCP?
I wouldn't take either one of them. I said Tristan da Silva.
True. All right,
take
fair.
the open spot on my.
I'll just look for another player on another roster. Yeah, probably.
Yeah, that Anthony Black is another name just to throw out. He missed their last game with back spasms. He hasn't been great. He has had some good games this year, and then he'll start after playing well off the bench, and it'll just be But I mean, without Paolo, without Franz Wagner, without Jalen Suggs, like somebody has to shoot the ball. I don't know. It's just kind of a dart throw. Which Magic player is it going to be this game?
What about Wendell Carter Jr.? He's been pretty poor overall, but as Noah said, somebody's going to have to shoot the basketball.
Give me Tristan. I don't know. Just Wendell.
Goga's at 60%, so shallow league managers should definitely get on that, but not the most exciting roster from a fantasy standpoint.
Just bring back Paolo. He's listed on the injury report as reconditioning, ready to return.
He's close.
So he's ramping up. So hopefully we'll see Paolo by the early in the new year because they just need some scoring after Jalen Suggs. So hopefully Suggs' injury isn't serious, but we're talking fantasy basketball. Fantasy football is obviously winding down here, but the NFL keeps going. NFL Week 18 Sunday Night Football. The NFC's #1 seed is on the line this Sunday when the Vikings take on the Lions in Detroit. Coverage of that showdown wraps up the regular season beginning at 7 p.m. Eastern on NBC and Peacock. How are you guys doing in your fantasy football leagues? Did you capture any titles? Where we stand with that?
I didn't play, so.
Oh, get out of here, Raph.
Yeah, I'm just like, who played? It's kind of like, I don't know, Week 18 the NFL is like the final 3 to 4 weeks of the NBA season. Like, why is your league still active?
No, my leagues are all wrapped up now.
Yeah.
I made the championship in one, and it's a dynasty league. My roster is insane, and then Terry McLaurin dud, Breece Hall dud, and then like Jamar, Justin Jefferson meh, and then I'm like playing against Trey McBride and Malik Neighbors. So like he's up by like 20 and still has Gibbs, and it's over.
I needed F1 to come through for me last night. And this man just got locked down. So I'm up 5 with Gibbs left to play on the other my opponent having Gibbs. So I'm pretty much done for. But we'll see. It was a pretty successful fantasy football season. I think I'm doing better at basketball, although we haven't talked about it yet. But right now, Noah is ahead. Are you second? You're second place in industry pickup.
I think I'm second by a half game after this last week.
And Raph's making his climb. I think he's in like 4th or 5th.
Yeah.
And Noah beat me on a technicality. I won't go into it, but it's all good. It's poor management. Just make sure you guys look at your settings and your commissioner communicates how the season's working in all these weeks. It was a really weird 3-week period with the in-season tournament. Most of that stuff is done now, but yeah, I caught victim to that and or fell victim to that. Just poor GMing. So let's not give out any poor information to these good fellows out here that are listening to this podcast. Let's talk about Alexandre Sarr and how he's been a top 100 player over the last 2 weeks in 8 and 9 cat leagues. Noah, what's your long-term view and short-term view? I mean, the Wizards are probably going to be a team that's going to be trading pieces. Who knows? Kyle Kuzma is going to be back in the lineup. He's finally over his rib injury. Maybe we'll see him showcased a little bit potentially for a trade. How do you feel about Alexandre Sarr? Because this is a guy that is not widely available. I mean, he's available in over 50% of leagues right now. So it seems like smaller leagues aren't really a fan of Alexandre Sarr just yet.
Yeah, I think short term, he's definitely got to fit kind of a specific team build for him to really make an impact. Obviously, blocks are his strongest category by far. The rebounds have been good. The threes have been really good recently, actually, over the past 2 weeks, 2.8 per game. Just seeing him shoot more has been good. And he's hitting more shots than he was previously over the course of the season. He's just below 40%. Past 2 weeks, 46.3% from the floor. Good to see him shooting the ball better. I think a lot of people expected that to be an issue for him as a rookie because he's not some interior finisher like some other rookie centers. He has a mid-range shot he likes. He's been shooting a lot of threes, so it's good for him long term. I think he's an elite, maybe not elite dynasty asset, but one of the best in the class. He was one of my favorite prospects coming into it, and so it's good to see him continue to play better. I think he should be rostered. I'm not gonna say maybe sitting on your waiver wire, drop whoever just to pick him up, but I think he's definitely a rosterable player.
Yeah, if you punt free throw percentage, he's top 50 over the last 2 weeks. So he's doing a lot of good things for the Wizards right now, and he's only going to continue to play heavy minutes as long as he stays healthy. You mentioned the Kuzma trade possibilities, Jonas Valanciunas as well. Do they look to move him to a contending team for more draft capital before the deadline? So I think everything's kind of clearing up for Sarr to be a really impactful player for fantasy managers in the short term and for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I'm a fan. I think that this is like at least this is a good floor of what to expect. And I think that we haven't really seen that upside yet if some of these players get traded. So if Alexandre Sarr is available, I think now is a good time to pick him up along with Bilal Coulibaly. I think both of these guys, for some odd reason, are not over 50% rostered. So I think even in shallow leagues, they both have some appeal here. Talking about another, I guess this would probably also kind of be along the lines of dynasty, but Raph, want to get your thoughts on Noah Clowney for the rest of the season. We talked about the opportunity that's coming up here with Dorian Finney-Smith now off of the Brooklyn Nets. Is this a guy that you think could kind of emerge as a fantasy asset going forward?
I think it's possible. It's not a lock by any stretch. He's primarily a points and threes guy right now and gets you some blocks too. Shout out to the guy who messaged me yesterday saying, all he did was hit threes. It's like, you don't become a top 25 fantasy player in one game, then, so let's give it a little time. I think if fantasy managers pick him up, you're going to have to be patient here just to see how the dust settles with that roster, because what he is now and what his role is now may not even be what it is after the trade deadline. So I think he's worth getting ahead of the rush and adding him now, but hopefully your roster's set up to where you're not relying on him for like starter level production immediately.
I don't think I'm quite as optimistic on him in the short term. I think when we were discussing him earlier, I think Raph said like a silly season guy, 100%. He was last season. Expect that to happen this year again, maybe even earlier than it did last year. He's started, I think, 4 of their last 5 games.
Yes.
He hasn't blocked a shot in 6 straight, and I know that he's capable of that. And that's why I really like him in dynasty leagues and long term. But it's good to see him hitting threes. He hasn't done much else. And will that happen eventually? Sure. But I don't think he's a guy that right now I'm definitely looking to pick up. And if anybody is super excited about him in your league and you're able to sell him pretty high, I think I'd be looking to do that as well. Just kind of looking at their roster after this trade, I think the expectation from a lot of people is that he's going to start, but I'm not sure that that's guaranteed either. It could be a D'Angelo Russell, Cam Thomas, Cam Johnson, Ben Simmons, Nick Claxton lineup. I mean, they could experiment with some other things. I know Raph threw out the name Jalen Wilson as well. So we'll see what the lineup looks like. I think he'll have, a more consistent role, but I don't think he's a lock to be part of the starting lineup, which makes me a little bit more, I guess, pessimistic about him.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty pessimistic. Like, I just don't see the fantasy profile yet. Now, if you're playing 35, we'll call it 33 to 35 minutes, I could be intrigued. But looking at this, and honestly, I haven't watched a lot of Noah Clowney this year or the Brooklyn Nets since Cam Thomas left the starting lineup. But I don't know. It looks very Dorian Finney-Smith-like to me. And he's always been one of those fringe waiver guys that can help you in certain instances, but like also a little bit volatile. I think I'd want to really see how this Brooklyn Nets team shapes out over the next, pretty much until the deadline, because there could be a significant opportunity for him before silly season that maybe after the deadline, this guy's going to be a locked-in starter and maybe his role changes. But yeah, I think when you have D'Lo, who's not really shy about passing the ball ever and shooting a lot of shots along with Cam Thomas, and Cam Johnson still needs to be fed. I don't know. I just don't know where Clowney fits yet. And he's still super young. So I think dynasty perspective, it's probably looking up for him just because, the more veterans you get out of the way, the better in the long term. But yeah, I think in the short term, I'm probably a little bit bearish on him. Just given just how many shot volume that's around him. I don't think he's really going to have enough in a fantasy profile to really thrive in 9-cat leagues or points leagues for that matter. But hey, maybe I'm wrong. I've been wrong before. The dude is hitting a lot of 3-pointers though. So if you have a 3-point premium, maybe that's a guy you want to look at. But yeah, I'm not super high on Clowney either. So let's talk about the rest of week 11 or week 10, excuse me. Love that we can do this on a Monday because we actually can make recommendations that actually have some validity throughout the rest of the week. So Raph, how are you kind of playing out this week? Are you looking at the teams that play 4 games? This is a pretty streamable week, right? Like we have no slate that's more than 9 games. So you should probably be able to spread out those transactions throughout the week. So how are you kind of playing the first half and into the second half?
Yeah, I think it's more about the teams that are playing early in the week. The Clippers have that Monday, Tuesday back-to-back, so I think that's one team to target early on here, especially while we still wait for Kawhi Leonard. He could be back as soon as the end of the week. I believe that is, the Saturday against the Hawks, which is the reported target date for him. So you have 2 days. I think the only issue with that roster is like who really stands out as a streamable option at this point. you know that Chris Dunn's going to start, but he really hasn't done too much. He's been more important to the team than the fantasy managers. So I think that's the issue with the Clippers. The schedule's good, but the options available to you really aren't.
Yeah, I was trying to look through just the teams that play 4 games and just try and see, okay, who has like a fringe bench guy that could step in or anything like that, or any back-to-backs that could cause some guys to sit. And I think the number one team that sits guys on back-to-backs is Boston, which they play 4 games. They have a back-to-back Thursday, Friday. I think Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis are questionable to play on Tuesday. They've kind of missed the last couple. So I think Sam Hauser is a guy that obviously you're mostly getting threes, and he hasn't been great, but we know he can get hot. He might be a guy I'd consider streaming that we haven't talked about. Obviously, we talked about Mason Plumlee, a little bit limited by the games played, but I think he has another iffy, pretty decent option. I don't think right now too many other guys are just like really sticking out, but we'll see. Injuries happen. I think actually Zach LaVine was just ruled out for this game, so I don't know if maybe that opens up more minutes for Lonzo. Maybe I think I would assume already out. Maybe not, because Lonzo isn't going to see that many more minutes. His are pretty restricted, but
yeah, I think one of the teams you mentioned back-to-backs, I mean, the Sixers definitely stand out there. Kelly Oubre, I think, is a player that, he's under 40% rostered, that I'm kind of surprised he's not rostered in more leagues, but he hasn't been great when the big three has been healthy, but still serviceable if you can get some extra games in. Raph, I know you're a fan of Caleb Martin, a guy that, since injury has been kind of turned it around, finally found his shot. Do you have any faith in him as a potential streamer this week?
I'm not expecting a Christmas Day performance, but I think he's someone that can have value. They've got that midweek back-to-back in Portland tonight too. So, he's been in the starting lineup with KJ Martin injured. So I think this may be a good week to kind of stream Caleb Martin and see where you're at the end of week 10.
Yeah, we're going to get right back to the rest of the pickups for this week. But real quick, got to go to the Premier League festive fixtures. The holidays just got merrier with the Premier League festive fixtures on NBC USA and streaming on Peacock. Today through January 6th, we're bringing you the greatest gifts, magical moments, and holiday cheer. You don't want to miss a moment of the drama and excitement from the best players in the world. I know Raph's going to be tuned in for that now that he clearly doesn't care about fantasy football. Or did he ever care about football? He cares about footy. That's what Raph cares about. AC Milan or nothing.
Yeah, fired our manager today. So. Yeah.
Oh, that's good news. Or is it not good news? I don't know. That's for
another. You'd rather not get to the point where you have to sack your manager. Let's put it that way.
That's fair.
Yeah, tell that to the Kings. Yeah, another player I would pick up. Like, it's not sexy by any means, but I think Peyton Watson does have some value here.
Yeah,
Aaron Gordon's going to be missing a couple of games, and I mean, you just look at the lineup of the Nuggets. I mean, they're playing Utah tonight. They got Atlanta, and then they play the Spurs on a back-to-back. So could be a nice little streaming potential there for him. Raph did mention he's not really thrilled about the options in the Clippers. I'm actually kind of thrilled about Derek Jones Jr. I think he's going to be a good streamable guy. I picked him up in several 12-team leagues. I think he's going to have a nice little 3 games and 4-night stretch before we get Kawhi Leonard back. So we'll see. I think he's definitely looking at 30 minutes, get some threes, some steals. That's all about what I'm looking for. Washington has a really good schedule. They play the Knicks tonight, but then they got Chicago and 2 games against New Orleans to finish out the weekend. So Malcolm Brogdon, if he's available in shallow leagues, definitely want to give him a look. I was hoping that, if we didn't get the Kyle Kuzma information that he's going to be off the injury report, this could have been a Champagne moment coming off 31-point career high on Saturday. But that looks like that might be quelled for the moment. What other players have you guys looked at? I mean, I was looking also like Karis LeVert, just because Cleveland has a pretty good schedule. I mean, not in terms of opponents, but they got a back-to-back Monday and Tuesday against Golden State and the Lakers. So in 112-team competitive league, I did have to pick up Karis LeVert in desperation. I don't love it, but hey, I'm just trying to get a couple games here.
Mm-hmm.
maybe Brandon Boston's back in the mix in New Orleans. They've got 4 games this week. Yeah, I think all the guys that you would think about in terms of good value guys for rostering are already picked up. So
Yeah.
I think Brandon Boston, like really deep leagues at this point, he may still have some value while we wait for Zion and Brandon Ingram to return.
Yeah. Kind of feeling the same way.
Dalton Connect, I think I'll throw out there. Lakers got Portland, Atlanta, and Houston, 3 games and 4 nights to close out Thursday through Sunday. So definitely an option there. And I mean, DFS is going to be available at some point too. So you can probably sneak in a couple games there. Already talked about the Suns. Don't look to them unless you have transactions left over at the end of the week, because they're not going to help you too much. But being that, New Year's Eve is coming up in New Year's Eve is tomorrow, and then New Year's is coming the next day. Noah, you got any fancy New Year's resolutions, or could just be basketball in general?
I think as far as a fantasy basketball resolution, I think I was thinking about this earlier. Just kind of like
flip it from resolution. Let's go to predictions, or like something you're trying to manifest going into the new year.
All right. Well, now that changes kind of what I had. Let's see. Predictions. Are we saying like predictions or manifesting? Because those are also different things.
I think manifestation. I think that's closer
Let's go
to
manifest.
a resolution.
Yeah, manifest.
Yeah.
All right. The Scoot Henderson breakout is legit, and he's finally going to be the number 3 overall pick that he was, and a lot of people, myself included, wanted him to be drafted over Brandon Miller. And obviously he's been, I couldn't have been more disappointing through the first year and a half of his career, but he's played well like the last 2 games. I'm hoping that either a switch has been flipped, or it's just he's had a few good games, can build off of it and just slowly continue to get better and better, because we know that he's a very talented player. It just hasn't happened yet. And so, yeah, it would make me feel a lot better about my takes and my advice I've given to people. I had one of my friends get mad at me the other day because he took Scoot in a dynasty startup ahead of last season. He's like, yeah, you ruined not ruined his team, but like, I was like, yeah, my bad. I have him in a bunch of leagues too. You're not alone. But yeah, hopefully Scoot can pop out.
I'm going to attempt to manifest Joel Embiid avoiding those random injuries. Like, it's one thing to get inadvertently hit in the face during the game. No, hey, I'd like to see it happen. It's like, it's one thing to get hit in the face inadvertently during a game, but what happened before the game in Boston is like, all right, this guy just has no injury luck whatsoever. So I'm going to try to manifest that for him. I think Kristaps Porzingis as well. Just get those guys healthy, because, in a straight basketball sense, both of those teams are completely different when those guys are healthy. And I'm sure a lot of fantasy managers can say the same thing about their rosters too right now. So I like to see those guys get a good run of games in between now and the end of the fantasy playoffs.
Yeah, I'm going to manifest Zach LaVine getting the hell out of Chicago and hopefully on his way to Los Angeles, because I feel like everything is kind of laying its course right now. They got their 3 first-round picks still available. They can match salaries with a few different players. They got to get a third star. And I think LaVine, he seems like an LA dude, man. Like it would just fit really nicely for this team. I don't know if it's going to bring a championship home for the Lakers. I'm not going that far. I'm just saying it would be good for basketball and good for Zach LaVine to get the hell up out of Chicago. And then also for dynasty players, Matas Buzelis probably gets some opportunity to play some more basketball, which I would also like to see. And then also, I think I would like to manifest the Houston Rockets doing something, because I don't know, just do something. Just do something. You have so much talent there. Use your assets. Trade Fred VanVleet. Trade Jalen Green. Go figure out something to bring home a better basketball team that can actually win something. But I don't know. They're doing a pretty good job right now. Just selfishly want to see Reed Shepherd play more minutes. It'll be good. It'll be good for basketball. And what situations are you tracking, Noah? Like in terms of like trade or injuries? Zion Williamson's taking light contact now. Do you have some optimism there, or are you pretty much like, I don't know this guy? That's how I feel.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not very optimistic about Zion. I also just don't think that they're going to trade him. I think it's one of those situations that's just kind of, I don't know. I don't feel like they'll trade him. I feel like they'll just try and make it work at some point, at least during the season. Maybe it's reevaluated in the offseason. I think a couple names that I got down as far as who could be traded that would be big for fantasy. Obviously, we talked about Jimmy Butler, Levine, Jakob Poeltl, Nikola Vucevic, I think out of Chicago as well. Brandon Ingram, De'Aaron Fox. I know we
San
alluded to that a little
Antonio?
bit. Maybe that would be fun. And then everybody in Golden State. They're gonna do something. I don't know who. Somebody's getting traded.
So Schroeder's
It was up
not
to
going to
Draymond,
stay.
everyone.
Do you think Schroeder is going to stay there, or do you think he's going to be out of there?
I think if it was up to Draymond, everyone except Steph Curry would be gone. And that's just obviously a joke, but they'll consider everyone, I think.
I'm watching Washington. I think in a lot of these trades, we kind of attempt to forecast who's going to take on a larger role. The thing with their younger guys is that they've all been playing good roles already. So I don't think fantasy managers are going to have to take too much of a risk on their younger players if they're to move, say, a Kyle Kuzma or Jonas Valanciunas. So I think Washington's a situation I'm going to be watching for the next month or so here.
Yeah, I think that the Cavs chasing 70 wins, being on pace for 70 wins is pretty compelling. I don't know that they'll get there, but they're well on their way. The situation I'm looking for is what are the Pistons going to do? Because they're at that spot where you're not tanking, you're playing better, but you got all these veterans that aren't really doing anything. I don't know. Tobias Harris has been garbage in fantasy, but definitely one of the bigger disappointments, along with Jalen Duren, who's playing better, but that's only because Isaiah Stewart's not there. So I don't know. Detroit's a place where I'm very curious. Then also Charlotte. LaMelo Ball's missed the last couple of games. The further they get down in the standings, I'd be curious as they're going to continue to tank. So begs the question, is there a sell moment for LaMelo Ball if you don't feel like he's going to be there on your fantasy rosters down the stretch? So tank season is definitely in session. Trade season's in session. It's a great time to play fantasy basketball if you haven't started a team already. If your fantasy football team is a wrap, you're not bringing home the championship, you're frustrated, you still want to play fantasy, start a fantasy football or fantasy basketball team on Yahoo. A lot of fun. Maybe you'll see us in one of the random leagues out there. But for Noah Rubin, Raphielle Johnson, Dan Titus, that'll do it for Rotoworld Basketball Show. We'll see you in week 11.